In this video, I'll be giving you everything I've learned from over 1,000 hours of running YouTube channels for business owners and why almost everything you've seen about growing on YouTube is meant for content creators, not for people trying to actually generate new business from the platform. From working with clients who went from 0 subscribers to getting over 1 million views in a year, booking calls within 3 weeks, I've come to see that the entire game that most business owners are playing on YouTube is just completely wrong. They're chasing views when they should be attracting buyers by solving relevant problems with education. And then they're copying other creators' video topics as their strategy when they should be doing what actually is going to convert for their own offer. So that's exactly why I'm making this video today, to walk you through the whole framework I'd give a business owner if I only had about 15 minutes to explain how YouTube actually works for getting clients. Now, if at any point you want to see how this system could directly apply to your business, there's a link in the description below. It's the first one. Just click that and get in touch with us. That aside, let's get right into it. So the first thing to get across is really that views are not the goal. However, we're not using that as a lazy cop-out for bad performance, right? We still want to be tracking views. We still want to be tracking relevant metrics like average view duration. What percentage of the video is actually being viewed? What's our click-through rate? Where's our traffic coming from? All of that matters, and views are just the total sum of the traffic that YouTube is giving you based on all those other metrics. Most people just don't have a system for even measuring those things in the first place, or for coming up with ideas that even make sense. Because if all you focus on is the number of views, the first thing that's going to come to most people's mind is, let me go to this other guy's channel and find his highest viewed videos. He's in my niche. I'll just use ChatGPT to remake those, and it already worked for him, so why is it going to work for me? That's just not going to do it. Now, tracking outliers is important, and most people don't have a system for that either, because you do want to understand what's working in the niche generally, and then take that and adapt it to yourself. Once you start putting out more and more content and you see what's actually converting for you on the back end, meaning resulting in new generated business, not just views, then you can approach this from the perspective of, all right, I know what's working in the niche. I know what's going to get me the most amount of push, but I know what's also going to help give me the best chance to get relevant push. So I want to live in this world ultimately where you can have both. You can have it all. You can get views, and that's important. It's important to track. It's important to track the metrics behind them, but we don't just want to blindly chase them, because for most people, it's going to lead you down the wrong path. You're going to make goofy content that is just so broadly appealing, it's not really going to convert anybody. A 200 view video that actually converts 5% of those viewers into real clients is better than a 200,000 view video that gets nobody. A prime example of this is one of our clients, Cody Gunn. His highest viewed video of all time is about 600,000 plus views, but he has another video on the channel that booked him 3 times the amount of calls, and that only has about 1/3 of the viewers. So you could do the math there. The highest reaching videos you have are not always going to be your highest converting videos. And another relevant example is our client, Cade Wiley. He had a channel where for a period in 2025, he had 166 calls booked. Over 80% of those were qualified, and he had a 56% close rate over that 8-month period in 2025 on those calls. Those videos were getting 200 to 300 views a piece. He was not a reach channel. He was funneling in a lot of traffic from TikTok organically, but the YouTube was all just high converting viewers. That was much more profitable than a lot of other creators I've met and have worked with that have 10 times the amount of reach per video, and they just don't get those conversions because it's not quality traffic, because their strategy was fundamentally wrong in the first place. This brings me to my next point, that most people treat YouTube as a random place just to dump videos. They don't actually systematically approach it as if it can be a demand generation platform. And even if they do think that, their strategy doesn't correlate with that, and the results don't either. We have another client, Rachel. She got 1.6 million views in 2025 overall for the year on long-form content alone. Her average view duration was just under 5 minutes per session. So 1.6 million views on average across all of those. They all watched for about 5 minutes. That is just so much time that people could spend with you at scale. She didn't have to have a 5-minute conversation with 1.6 million people. She made one video a week roughly for an entire year, and that did all of the heavy lifting for her. So those people are able to sell themselves. They're able to build that parasocial relationship with you where they feel like they know you because they've been watching you for so long. And as time goes on, they sell themselves on working with you. The people that are naturally attracted to wanting to work with you for having the same values, liking your ideas, the way you present yourself, they're going to self-select. And when they do end up reaching out to you, it's highly likely that if they're coming from YouTube and they have spent all this time watching you, building that parasocial relationship, they're going to convert at a much higher rate than any other cold traffic lead source that you could get or any other content source. Well, I don't care whether that's LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it. There's just no other platform like YouTube, which functions more like Netflix than a social media platform, right? It is essentially a search engine. It's owned by Google, second most visited website in the world that is optimized for video. There's just not a social media algorithm. You go on Facebook, you go on LinkedIn, Instagram, that's optimized for mindless scrolling. That's why the shorts reels do so well. YouTube mobile does that too. Shorts are on there. But I always like to compare it to when you go to the movie theater, you expect to sit down for a 2-hour movie. I don't care how bad your attention span is in 2026 and beyond. That's still the norm if you go physically to a movie theater. When most people open up the YouTube app, they're expecting, in Rachel's case, to sit there for a minimum, on average, of 5 minutes. And many people watch well beyond that every single week. So you could see how this acts as not only demand generation, because you're tapping into the insane amount of traffic that YouTube has to give you if you earn it, but it is a nurture and conversion asset. There's nothing else like it besides actually sitting down and having a conversation with those people or getting your team to do it. That is so much more logistically intensive than you just sitting down, recording a video once a week and putting it out there for potentially millions of people to see. And because of how different YouTube is from everything else, you can get away with the laziest funnel online. All of our clients that do well and convert, whether they get 500,000 views a year, 50,000 views a year, or 2 million views a year, they are generally pushing people directly to a link in the description that goes straight to a Typeform application. Maybe it goes to a landing page that has a nice video sales letter on it, and again, a Typeform for someone to fill out. But we're not putting people through these elaborate webinar funnels, these challenge funnels, any kind of crazy cold traffic optimized marketing funnel. It's literally just, hey, you have watched me likely for a while. You've seen a lot. You understand what I'm about. You've heard very subtle calls to action in the videos themselves. Here's just a form to get in touch with us. And in fact, you might not even need to see my website. You could literally just go right to the form. YouTube is replacing the website. I'd go out as far as to say, look, you still need a landing page. It's still relevant, but generally anybody can get a website spun up now that is not digital leverage anymore. You can have AI, you can have Claude Design build you a website in under an hour that would have costed you $10,000 plus in the last 10 years. I like to refer to most traditional websites as just glorified brochures because that's really all they are. That's not a differentiator. It's not enough to win trust in the market anymore. What's required in 2026 and beyond is having a backlog of content, not just one video, not just 2 videos, but having multiple videos, 10, 15, even up to 20 minutes long, where people could sit there and just get a feel for you, just get to know you, understand, learn something, right? We'll get into like what YouTube's actually supposed to do, but that is required to win trust. You can have the simplest funnel ever. You can get away with just a Typeform in the description. That's how powerful YouTube is. A funnel is just there to support traffic at scale. It's to filter people down to a clear next step. YouTube is doing so much of the heavy lifting, you don't need anything crazy. So once you understand that the channel is carrying the weight in the funnel, the next question becomes, who are you actually building it for? This is where most people lose before they even start filming. And I get this question all of the time. Should I niche down? Who am I making these videos for? I have these different niches. I could work with this person. I could work with this type of person. What kind of content am I going to make? The thing that I'm going to say is that if you try to appeal to everyone, you will appeal likely to no one, right? That's a pretty common cliche in marketing. but it is true. And on the other side of that, if you just niche down for no reason on a segment of your TAM, total addressable market, that doesn't even make sense, you're also not going to appeal to anyone. It has to make sense. So generally the way I like to think about it is you probably have a base of clients that you like to work with. And if you convert that ICP or ideal client profile at a high level already, then we're just going to focus on them. Congratulations. You have a business serving a market that has validated the need for your business. Let's just go with them. If you have a client base of starter clients, people that you wouldn't like to take on more of, but you haven't validated your next niche, well, then we start looking at, okay, what would you want your business to look like? Who else would you like to mimic? Who would you want to serve? And that's where we start to look at, does it make sense for you to start to make content towards them? So there is a sweet spot. There is a middle ground where it becomes so much easier if you are niche down to a validated niche that is actually socially calibrated, that makes sense for you to market to. It's going to be so much easier to get results on YouTube. However, if we niche down too much, it's not going to work. So you have to find that middle ground, and it's different for everybody. It has to make sense specifically for who you like, who you want to work with, who you work with now, what's working, and a whole other host of factors. We had another client, Samuel Harnish. He added over 100 million in assets under management to his financial planning practice in under a year with YouTube as the primary driver. What he does is high-level, complex tax strategy. He used to work at one of the largest asset managers in the world in a non-client-facing role. He was in the back. He calls himself the nerd in the back. And he was just working on all of these quantitative financial strategies. That's actually the name of his firm. So he's a quant in the back doing all this complex math stuff for tax savings. He has his own RIA where he is getting clients with a minimum of 5 million investable assets, and he's considering raising it to 10 million. That is very niche. There's a very small amount of people in the United States with that level of money to invest. He's making videos on these strategies like box spread loans, stuff that I had never heard of before. And people were telling him that this isn't going to work. Are those people on YouTube? Even he was a little unsure, but he still felt confident YouTube was the right move. So again, in about less than 8 months, he had added 100 million in assets to manage through YouTube with an extremely focused niche. His highest viewed video, or second highest viewed video at this point, was on that box spread loan strategy that I had just mentioned. It's a very niche topic, yet it still had some broad appeal on YouTube because we were able to package it correctly. And so the lesson here is to understand niching down is important, but you have to be super specific about why you're doing it and when you should versus should not. So real quick, now that you see how the audience changes everything, you can book a call with us if you want to see how this system might be able to work for you. That's the first link in the description. We can talk about how this may or may not make sense for you. Anyway, let's keep going. And the next most important thing is that scripting is where most channels die. 9 out of 10 people, when they start to focus on YouTube, think about the camera setup, the lighting, the audio. They want all this expensive gear. They want it to look right. They want to make sure they look good in the thumbnails, right? It's all vanity focused. And sure, yeah, you need to communicate you have a professional image. However, a lot of our clients, including Samuel and others, all film on an iPhone. Yes, they have a decent light setup. Yes, they might use a microphone, but they're not going Hollywood just to make these YouTube videos. In 2026, you really don't need to do that. Yeah, it helps, not a requirement. Especially post-2020, where work from home is super common. Unless you're the exception, you can get away with filming in your house. You can clean up your background, have a bookshelf, have some plants behind you, have your diploma or certificates on the wall, and you'll be just fine. And then obsessing over the editing style is another thing that has very minimal impact on your actual tangible business results and your growth metrics on YouTube, the amount of views you get. If you switch up your editing style, it's probably not going to do much. What you need is the minimum amount of quality to just get it to be watchable. You can't be in the shadows and look really terrible, but you don't need it to be Hollywood. Just needs to be good enough. So I said that scripting is where channels die is because most people focus on all those other things and they don't focus on what am I saying and how relevant is it to the actual people that I'm hoping will become my client or that I'm hoping will do business with me as a result of watching this channel, right? And you don't need to get traffic. You don't need to get these people to watch you on YouTube. They're already there. Again, second most visited website in the world, over 1 billion active users, and the United States or wherever you're at is very well represented on YouTube, guaranteed, right? It's owned by Google. You have to understand the traffic is there. YouTube will give it to you. You just have to earn it. So how do you do that? You have to start the video in a way that is problem focused. What I mean is that for most of you watching this, the type of content that you need to make is where you are both providing education and some actionable insights and takeaways. Generally, when people watch a YouTube video and they spend over 5 minutes per session on average doing that, they want to learn something. They want to feel that they are better off for having watched this video. So when you earn their click with the right title and thumbnail, which is your packaging, you then have to make sure that you validate that click by starting the video with some sort of relevant problem. It doesn't have to be the most dramatic thing in the world. That doesn't mean the sky is falling. It could just be that they lack clarity on something that you're going to help them understand through the video, right? Your audience on YouTube is not a captive audience. It's earned. If they click, which is already more than half of the battle, you sold them on watching the video, you could lose them in 2 seconds or less if you don't actually bring something to the table immediately and make the video about them and what they care about. So just like in a sales letter, direct response style copywriting does work really well in YouTube. Using open loops, super mystical concept that all these YouTube gurus talk about. All it means is just mentioning something and then not bringing it up till later, right? So in this video, I'm going to take care of the 5 most relevant pieces of information you need to know, and then I'm going to give you our secret formula to fix it at the end. That's an open loop because I don't just give you the answer right away. I carry you through the video and I reveal it piece by piece. That's all that means. So using open loops and then using the classic formula of introducing a problem, agitating that problem, providing some mechanism to relieve it, and then showing some proof. That's just the formula that's going to win. So a good script on YouTube is structured in that way, and it's not word for word scripted. You need to be able to let people understand who you are, how you communicate, your vibe. They just have to understand that you are professional, competent, and relatable at the end of the day. So you don't want to use a word for word script. You want to be able to speak off the top of your head. You're already an expert at what you do. So I recommend writing your hooks word for word to make sure you're actually delivering the immediate value and not getting people to click away because you're just winging it. But the rest of the video, you should really just follow an outline, which is what we do for our clients. So now that you understand what actually matters on YouTube, let's look at how the back catalog is what actually closes the deals for you so you can see the full picture of what matters on YouTube. Just like when you start going to the gym or you start investing in the beginning, every input feels like a lot. But over time, as you add videos to your YouTube channel, those videos start to get traction over time as your new ones help grow the channel. Having a back catalog for people to go and binge watch is extremely important. I always, again, compare this to Netflix, where when you go to look for a movie or a show to watch, it doesn't necessarily matter if it came out a few years ago. Classic movies are still great watches. Netflix benefits by having a bigger catalog. And the better shows and movies that they have, no matter how long ago they were there, the more they're going to keep you on the platform. It's the same thing for you. So every time you make a video and it does really well, you should immediately go to make the next one. Don't just take your foot off the gas because, sure, YouTube is going to push new videos a little bit more than the older ones. But as you prove to YouTube that you could earn traffic, that you are worth watching because people stick around and like your videos, your older videos will continue to grow along with your newer videos. There's a lot of studies out there on how many interactions it takes to actually build a relationship with somebody, but YouTube just does this fantastically well. It's called a parasocial relationship. Again, that concept I introduced earlier. You are building trust at a one-to-many scale. So it's you, it's me right now, sitting in front of this camera, just like you would be, and you're watching this video. I probably haven't met you before, right? And you might go on to watch my next video and the next one after that. and then go back to see some old videos that were trending just to see what I'm all about, right? That's what lets me mimic relationship building at scale through a parasocial relationship. And the same for anyone who posts a lot of YouTube content. See, what people don't understand is that there's buyers somewhere in your total addressable market. And there's different stages, right? So you've got 3% of people in your market that at any given point in time are solution aware, problem aware, and they're looking to buy right now. And you could grab those people. Everyone's competing for those types of leads, for those types of clients. But then you have people that they might not all the way at the top, they don't know anything, but they could be a good potential candidate if only they were aware that they had a problem and that a solution existed, which would be you. There's people that are aware they have a problem. They don't know what your solution is. And then there's people that know they have a problem. They know there's potential solutions out there and they don't know why you're better. So there's all these buyers on the spectrum in your total addressable market, and they have their own sales cycle. For some people, it could take them up to a year or more of being aware of the solution before they even decide if it's worth it for them or not. Prime example is myself. I invested into my first business coach, which was a 5-figure investment, through watching him on YouTube for almost 10 months. I showed up to that call already convinced at some point 3-4 months before, this is the guy that I want to work with. He's competent. I trust what he's saying generally. I really like the way that he's going about things. I've learned a lot. I've actually taken things from these videos and then went and applied them on my own, free advice that worked. So, how good is the paid? If only this guy was actually helping me, I'd love to pay him to help me, right? So I showed up to that call. How do I buy? That's basically all I needed to know. I was already convinced. That's what we're trying to create. That is the exact same concept that I'm trying to get across to you today. How do we create that? That is the power of having a backlog of content and continuing to post consistently. The right cadence is about 1 video per week. Think of it like an old TV show where they come out with a new episode every Monday or every Tuesday, right? You could do 2 times a week once you validate the channel and you prove that you have traffic. You want to build your backlog of content a lot faster. That's how you do it. But anything more than that is probably diminishing returns for over 90% of you. And of course, a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, well, I can clip these up into shorts too, right? Yes, you can. Again, you have to be careful about how you do that, where you post, but you've taken the time to sit down and record a 10 to 15, 20-minute video on a topic where you're generally just following an outline, speaking freely, educating, helping people. You can repurpose that content into newsletters, into short form clips. We have clients all the time, 2 I mentioned before, Rachel and Cody, that actively get clients from fake TikTok accounts that steal their YouTube content, clip it up, post it on TikTok, and they don't even link back to the YouTube. These are clients that went from TikTok, searched their name on YouTube, found the channel, watched videos, went through the funnel, and became clients. Again, YouTube does so much of the heavy lifting for you. You repurpose the content somewhere else. You don't even have to point back to the YouTube channel. They'll probably just find you there and then book in. So now that you've seen how the entire system works, from why you shouldn't just focus on views to how the back catalog is what's closing these deals for you over time, hopefully you stop looking at YouTube as a social media platform and look at it as something that both generates new demand and new business and nurtures people no matter where they are in your total addressable market, how ready they are to buy, or how aware they are of your solution or their own problems.